Hello, my name is Ashley and this is the Design by So-and-so podcast. I'm a knitter and knitwear designer based out of Vancouver Island in Canada, and mostly I'll talk about knitting on my podcast, but I will delve into other fiber arts like spinning and sewing. So today's episode is actually going to be a sewing focused podcast. I actually sewed jeans, like real deal, heavy duty Japanese denim jeans, and I wanted to tell you all about it. So if that's something that interests you, why don't you grab your craft and let's chat. So before we get into jeans talk, I just wanted to mention I have a website, designbysewandsew.com, where you can sign up to my newsletter. You'll receive alerts for test knit calls and any pattern releases that are happening. I also sell my patterns on Ravelry. I am Design by So-and-so or Ashley R. Adams there. And if you enjoy videos like these, please be sure to hit the like button below and subscribe so that you don't miss out on future videos. All right, let's get into jeans talk. So we're going to talk about jeans, specifically the ones that I just made this past week. I'll also give you some pattern recommendations of other jean patterns that have caught my eye and some that I want to make. So there's a list for men's and women's jeans in the description box below. And then I'm going to share some tips for you. So this is a labor of love and a huge learning curve for me. I have sewn with heavier fabrics in the past, like canvas and denims and leather, but you really do learn through experience. So I'm going to share just a list of tips for you if you want to delve into sewing with heavier weight fabrics. So let's get started. Here on my computer to the side, but I'm going to share patterns that have caught my eye. These are all heavy-duty pants or actual jeans patterns. I'll start with the women's patterns and then get into men's, and the links will all be in the description box below. Honestly, next on my list for women's jeans are the Helene jeans by Anna Allen. The fit on these jeans look incredible. I've heard really good things, just looking on Instagram too. A lot of people seem to like them. They don't just make one pair, they'll make multiple pairs because they really like the fit. So these jeans really intrigue me. That might be my next jeans sewing for myself. Some other patterns that caught my eye are the Heroine jeans, that's by Merchant & Mills. The Adams pant by Daughter Judy also looks really good. I have made the pinion pants myself in the past. Absolutely love that pattern. It fits so well. I made two for myself. I am tempted to make more, but I kind of want to try out some other patterns and just, broaden my horizons a little bit instead of just sticking to the pinion pants. Another pattern that caught my eye is the Falconer pants. That's by Helen's Closet. What I really like about these is the side pocket. So it doesn't have your traditional like front pockets and back pockets. It has a pocket that just hugs around the outside of your thigh, which I thought just looks kind of cool. Okay, moving on to men's jean patterns, which the jeans that I sewed were actually for my husband, so I used a men's pattern. But some of the ones that I found were the work trouser. This is by Modern Sewing. There's the Quadra jeans by Thread Theory. This one looked really interesting. I think it's by a local pattern designer. All of their patterns have names for things around Vancouver Island, so I think that they're locally based to me. And then another pattern was, it's just called jean sewing pattern. So I'm sure they pop up right away when you're searching that online. But yeah, it's jean sewing pattern by Wardrobe by Me. So all of these jeans looked really good. They're like your actual jeans with top stitching and rivets and everything. But they looked a little bit more like wide leg, like traditional jeans, and I wanted to make more of a slim cut for my husband. So I landed on the Best Selvage jeans. It's a pattern by Angela Kane, and I'll tell you my opinion on this pattern. There's good things, and then there's like some negative opinions that I have as well. Okay, so my opinions on the Best Selvage jeans by Angela Kane. I landed on this pattern because it was a little bit cheaper than the other patterns, because her payment system is different. You actually subscribe to all of her patterns, where you can pay like a monthly rate or a yearly rate or something like that, or you can just purchase the pattern and you have access to it for 30 days, for 1 month. So I decided to do that. I didn't want to subscribe to all of her patterns, so I just bought the Best Selvage jeans and had access to it for 30 days. Another reason why I landed on these jeans was that they are more slim cut. They're a little bit more tapered and slimmer around the hips, and I thought that that would fit my husband a little bit better. And then I also liked that these jeans really lean into like that selvage cut. So it's using the selvage or the straight edge of your fabric in the side seams of your jeans, so that when you roll them up at the cuff, you see that little bit of selvage. Pattern also comes with a complete video tutorial on YouTube, and that was really handy because it walks you through step by step on how to sew your pattern. And some of the things that she mentioned in the video tutorial was actually really helpful for me, and I learned from it. One negative thing that I did not like about this pattern, so there is no schematic. All the sizes are just written as the lower waist measurement, so you just choose your size based on that measurement. The sizes are like 28 inches, 30 inches, 32, 34. It goes up by 2-inch increments for that lower waist measurement. But there's no schematic to tell you, okay, what is the hip measurements and what is the leg length and even the width of like the leg at the ankle, stuff like that. So it was difficult to choose a size. I sewed 2 different toils, I don't know how to pronounce that word. I say it toil because that's what it looks like in English. I don't know. Anyways, I sewed 2 different toils because I couldn't get the size right. I used my husband's lower waist measurement, cut out that size. It was far too tight. So I went up a size, cut out, it was the 36 size that I used. Cut that out, sewed it up, it fit him. So I went with that. I actually emailed Angela King because I had another issue with downloading the pattern, but I did mention the lack of a schematic because it made choosing the size and finding the proper fit really difficult. You're going in blind when you just have one number. So I asked her if she would include a schematic with this pattern. She said that she's received that suggestion before and that she would think about it. So we'll see if she actually does. I feel like you really need to know those numbers. If you're going into a pattern, you need to know where it's going to fit on your waist and your hips and everywhere. So that was my one gripe about this pattern, is like it was really hard to know what size to cut out in the beginning. After that though, just like figuring out the sizing, everything else about the pattern was awesome. The fit was excellent. I didn't have to adjust anything for my husband. I just sewed as is for the size 36 and it ended up fitting him. He typically buys, like in the store, he'll buy a 32 waist. So yeah, 36 just seemed, it threw me off, and anyways, numbers and fitting, it was off. So all that to say, I am happy with my choice. I can't 100% recommend this pattern, but it worked out for me once I figured out the sizing. That being said, I finished some jeans. These are like real deal jeans with rivets and a proper working fly that's sewn in straight and looks really good. And and the seams match so perfectly. It's really dark denim, so it might be really hard to see, but I'll include some footage showing what these jeans look like. Now I'm going to go into some tips for sewing with denim or canvas, heavier weight fabrics, and some things that I learned. Tip number 1, if you're going to pre-wash your denim, especially if it is like a dark wash denim, soak it beforehand in your bathtub or in a big container. This denim that I used it's Japanese denim from Blackbird Fabrics, and it is like a super dark wash. It also is a really big piece of fabric. I have in the past made the mistake of just throwing a dark denim into the washing machine, and then when I pulled it out, it has those creases where the dye like bled. So you've got these kind of lighter lines, like fade lines on the fabric. And for a really nice piece of denim, it would be a shame to ruin it in that way. So I looked around online, I did some research, and I read that if you pre-soak it before you put it into the washing machine, it can help avoid that happening. So I put this huge piece of fabric into my tub. I put a little bit of vinegar in it also, and then I let it soak for like 15 minutes or half an hour. After that, I took it wet and put it into my washing machine, and I made sure that the spin cycle was on low so that you're not going to be getting a lot of friction when it's creased in the washing machine. Then I pulled it out and I hung it to dry. I did not put it in the dryer. That worked for me. There are some very faint crease lines that still happened, but it was way better than the first time that I did this. I think the reason why I still got some of those fade lines is that my washing machine is quite small, and so that big piece of fabric, you know, didn't have a lot of room in the machine, so the creases would have kind of stayed while it's moving around. So if you have a bigger machine, or if you have access to go to a laundromat with the big industrial size machines, that might be better. But yeah, pre-soaking your fabric works well. My next tip is use jean or denim needles. If you're going to use your universal needle, you're gonna have a lot of headaches. It's going to break on you. It's going to have a really hard time sewing through those thick layers of fabric, but jeans or denim needles are designed for that. They pierce through so well. I used one needle for the whole project and it didn't break or bend or anything, and it was going through some really thick parts. I feel like the belt loops are probably the thickest, where you have so many layers of folded fabric, and it was able to sew through it well. So pick up some jeans needles at your fabric store. My next suggestion is, while you're at the fabric store, also get some denim or jeans thread. So this is way thicker than your regular thread. It says here it is 100 meters or 110 yards on this bobbin or spool, while your regular thread is 250 meters or 274 yards. So it is more than double the thickness. And you can tell when you're sewing, it's really sturdy. It's not going to snap or break while wearing it afterwards. And it looks really good with the top stitching. I think that that's what sets jeans apart from just regular pants, is all the details like the top stitching and the rivet. So grab some thicker thread to do that. Something that I learned while sewing this pair of jeans too is that you don't need to have the thick denim thread in your bobbin. So this can just be for your top needle, and then just use regular thread in your bobbin. You can play around with your tension and sew through some scraps and see what works, but that sewed super smoothly for me. Everything ran really smoothly. The stitches were really neat with this in your top needle, like for top stitching and sewing seams, and then regular thread in the bobbin. I went with a matching colored thread because that's the look that my husband wanted. It's a little bit dressier in my opinion, but you could go with like the traditional copper style jeans thread, or a white thread could look really cool. Tip number 3, don't bother serging. I have an old serger and it struggles. So I don't think it would be able to get through serging multiple layers of denim fabric. So I just went with the zigzag stitch on my machine, and using the denim needles and the thicker thread, the zigzag stitch worked perfectly fine. I'll show you the insides of these. I feel like that is neat. It's not going to fray, it's not going anywhere, and it's just the inside of the pants. So yeah, I feel like the zigzag stitch is perfectly fine. I'll show you the pockets too. I just knew it was going to be a battle if I was going to serge this. So just zigzagging it went super smoothly, and yeah, I don't think that it's going to fray or be too messy. So that's my tip. Don't bother with a serger when you're dealing with really stiff fabric. My next tip is actually thanks to Alicia from Edmiston Creations. I was watching a podcast of hers where she was talking about her jeans sewing experience, and she recommended getting a little doohickey called a Jeanamajig. This is like an off-brand one that I found at my fabric store, but basically it's just this plastic kind of wedge that you put behind your presser foot. So let's say you're sewing like this, but then you get to a hump of fabric and your presser foot is at an angle and it can't quite get over that hump of fabric. You put the wedge at the back of your presser foot and it lifts it up, and then you're able to glide along amazingly smooth. This is incredible. I don't know why I have never heard of this or never seen this until now, because I've done a lot of like sewing bags in the past with canvas and leather, and I always had that hard time getting over those humps of fabric. This thing is a lifesaver. So if you can find a Jeanamajig or like some sort of plastic contraption that is meant to lift up the back of your presser foot, get it. It's awesome. It saved so much heartache and just made the job so easy. I love this thing. My next tip is use an awl. So it is a very, very pointy little device where you can poke holes through your fabric. So I use this to make holes for inserting the button and also rivets. But also this is great for feeding the fabric through your machine. So when you have like a lot of fabric and you're trying to kind of just guide it through, this is great to just kind of like poke in your fabric and then push it through. Especially when you come to a point where there's like a whole bunch of fabric and the feed dogs aren't doing their job in pulling the fabric through, this works really well to just kind of like guide it through, push it through. So this was super cheap, just like $4 at my fabric store. Yeah, it's worked really well. Be careful though. I did manage to poke myself with this thing. Super sharp. My next tip is another little tool that comes in handy. This thing, I feel like it probably comes with most machines. It is a seam allowance guide. So basically you stick it behind your presser foot, and you line it up with whatever seam allowance you want, and then it just kind of keeps your fabric in line with this guide so that you're sticking to your seam allowance. I found this really helpful because sometimes you just veer off a little bit when you're just following the notches on your machine. So this just is like more of a reminder, and it kind of even pushes the fabric to like stay in line with this. So yeah, I found this really helpful when I was sewing parts that need to be precise, like the waistband. You want it to be the same width the whole way around. Yeah, this thing was really great. I actually haven't used this until just recently. I started using it when I was quilting something, and so I wanted to follow the lines I was quilting to keep it all the same width. Just using it as like a seam allowance guide on the edge of your work works really well too. So this little guy, lifesaver. Another tip that I learned in my experience of sewing these jeans is you do not need to backstitch to tie knots, especially if you're using this thick denim thread. It's gonna look really sloppy and noticeable if you're backstitching and the knot's going to show up. So what I did is I just left some tails with my thread ends. Then afterwards I would pull the top thread through the work to the back. I'd tie a square knot with the bobbin thread and the top thread, and then if it was just on the inside of my work, I would just snip them. If it was somewhere that was going to show, like on the waistband, I would then take those two ends, thread them into a needle, and then feed that through into the middle of my work to kind of hide those ends. And that ended up with like a really clean finish where you're not seeing a noticeable knot on the top of your work. Okay, we've made it to the end, and I have one last bonus tip for you. If you are sewing with indigo dyed denim, especially if it is a dark wash, you will get blue dye everywhere. It rubs off on everything. At the end of the day, my hands were all tinted blue, especially like my fingertips where I was touching the fabric. There was blue marks on the edge of my counter. I sew in my kitchen, so the kitchen counter was all like streaked blue. The chair was blue. It was everywhere. It rubs off. Thankfully, it does wash off too, like just with some soap and water, I was able to wash my hands, and then I used a magic eraser on my countertops to get rid of the blue. Yeah, it's just going to be one of those things. It will rub off. It's going to be interesting with my husband wearing these jeans now too, how much it rubs off on, the chairs that he's sitting on and things like that. We have a light couch. We're going to have to be careful. All right, thanks so much for sticking around. I hope that this information was helpful for you if you are planning on sewing a pair of jeans. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. I'm happy to help out. And let me know if you have anything more that you would add to this list of tips if you have experience in sewing with stiffer fabrics. So let me know. All right, I hope that you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.